Hey everybody, my name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdowns 2026 Free Comic Book Day episode. If you're unfamiliar with the lore, Free Comic Book Day doesn't exist anymore because all of the branding rights were owned by Diamond Distribution, and Diamond Distribution is currently in bankruptcy settlement court. And there's a couple different people arguing about who gets what asset. So instead, this year we have Comics Giveaway Day 2026. Um, so this year, much like last year, me and my buddy Ephraim packed up me and my kid, and we drove around and hit up a couple different shops picking up free comic books today. Not today, but recently. And I just wanted to roll through some of the stuff that I got. First up was The Name She Lost, Inanna, by Inanna Sarkis and Tim Seeley, Adamir Leal, Natalia Marquez, and World Design. Right off the bat, I want to say one of the things I really like about this is it has this nice book style back with the creative team, the book, and then the pitch of the book, which is really nice. I would love if more comic books did that kind of thing. It's very helpful, especially when I want to hold it up and tell you who the creative team is and I don't remember all of their names. That's really great. I'm unfamiliar with most of the people who have made this book, except for Tim Seeley, whose name I'm familiar with, but whose works I generally don't really enjoy. But I recently have been enjoying his Inglorious X-Force over at Marvel. I've actually thought that it's been a much better book than I expected it to be. It's one of my favorite X books out of the three that I'm buying at the moment. Pardon my voice, I'm getting over a chest thing, so my voice is a little wonky. Anyway, the concept of the book is that the Syrian goddess Inanna, who is a goddess of war and victory and death and rebirth, appears to have been born in the mortal age. The book opens 5,000 years ago in the city of Uruk, where a bunch of people defending the city pray to her, and she grants them the ability to defeat their enemies with a vengeance. It's actually pretty cool. And then the book transitions. It pivots halfway through to modern day, where we're in, I think it was San Francisco or LA, one of the two, where a left-leaning superhero is the new mayor of the city, promising to fix all of their problems, and everybody's like, how are you going to do it? And he's like, It's hard to tell if the author is saying that the superhero is just a performative measure who says he's going to fix everything when in actuality he will fix nothing, or if he's actually helpful or not. Don't know at this point. And then Inanna's body washes up on the beach. 3 drunk dudes find her and ostensibly try to help her. She comes to and she's like, man, get the hell away from me. She beats the absolute crap out of them and then walks into the city. Buckhead,
no swearing,
naked with nothing but her necklace piece, the whole situation on her, to find whatever her fortune is now. I thought it was a fine issue. I think there's promise to the concept. I don't know where you go with this. I don't know if she's going to be a superhero. Is she going to be, ostensibly she's a warrior type. So is she going to show up and murder everybody who gets in her way? It sure seems like it. Is that going to mesh well with the modern age? I don't know. And is that the point? Maybe. There's a bit of writing in the back where the author, Inanna, says that she was inspired by the mythology of the goddess that is her namesake. So she clearly has a lot of passion for this and a lot of interest in the idea. I thought it was a good first issue. I haven't had a lot of... Thank you, Windows. I haven't had a lot of time to think about it. But overall, I liked it. I gotta say, I don't intend to continue to get more as the book goes on. It wasn't interesting enough to sell me on buying another comic book, but I do think it was a strong preview issue. I also got Avatar Legends, in which we see Avatar Roku learning about earthbending from his earthbending master Sud, when they save Sud's home village from an avalanche and then a contaminated water supply. I've tried reading the Avatar comics a couple different times. I was a big fan of the cartoon when it was originally airing. I mean, I'm a big fan in general, but like when it was airing is when I was like hyped for it, right? I know everybody found it on Netflix after, and I'm glad that they did. But I've never been able to recapture that original glory that was when it first came on. And like I said, I absolutely loved it. I've tried reading the comic books several times because, like, I know that they pick up on continuity and they finish stories that the cartoon couldn't get to. They never connect for me. This doesn't connect for me. It's fun. It's a good comic. Like, I can't tell you that it's bad. The thing that I think is the most obviously weird about it is that your earthbending guy is named Sud, when typically, at least in Western culture, suds refers to like the bubbles of soap when you're washing something. So the idea that you're going to have a dude who's the rock guy be named after what I would think of as a water thing feels kind of weird. But I mean, that's such a small complaint. I can't say it's bad. The comic was done by David M. Booher, Bailey Roseland, Chris Peter, and Comicraft. Again, that's a whole group of people. I mean, I'm familiar with Comicraft. I don't know who any of the rest of those people are, but the comic worked. It's an entertaining enough story. It is a little weird. It is a little weird as a 40-year-old man, because I've been slowly working my way through the Avatar novels that they've done that are covering the last 3 lives before Aang. I think the next ones that I would start are, I think they're Roku's. No, they're Yangchen. And those books are so dark. They are grim dark. Like, they will make you question society. And to go from that to reading, like, haha, son, I'm gonna race you up the mountain. We've got a woo-hoo-hoo. Woo, it's some real whiplash. And this is much more in line with the cartoon than the books, for sure. And I mean, if you like Avatar, I couldn't tell you shouldn't like this. I don't know why these don't connect with me. I've thought about it a lot. I've considered making an episode about it, to be quite honest. But it just doesn't hit, and I don't know why. Third for me was Deciduum, I think is how you say that. Decidium. There we go. I don't 100% know what the fact that it's called Decidium means, other than DEI. De means God in, I think, Latin. So it's something to deal with gods. And then reading the book, it basically tells us that the gods have returned. There appears to be some kind of rebellion within the city. We spend most of our time, let me see if I can get we'll get a good shot of him, hopefully. We spend most of our time with this old professorial-looking man in a cafe, reading books, lamenting history, and he's essentially setting up a lot of the lore for us, which clearly almost none of which stuck with me. But then, as we get through the promo, the last, 2 pages... Yeah. We meet a little, street punk kid who is, on a floating hoverboard kind of thing, stealing something. And I don't know. I don't really...
No swearing.
From a story perspective, this did nothing for me. From an art perspective, and I'll do better shots in the issue itself, this book is gorgeous. The promo they gave us is black and white. I don't know if the main comic itself is going to be black and white. But this is one of those books. So when I would draw my own comics, I was primarily a black and white artist. I don't like coloring. I don't care for computer coloring personally. I don't think in colors, if that's a way to say it. Like, anytime when I would be doing my own covers or doing the color design for my characters, I really struggled to make them work and have them make sense. This, visually, is right up my alley. It's detailed, it's complicated, it's pretty, it's beautiful. The characters are all really well defined, everybody looks distinct. The world, for the most part, looks like ours, but then there's a real, organic look to a lot of the technology that you see in it, which makes it feel like it's a fantasy world or like a sci-fi world. And then, of course, you have this idea that the gods have returned. And what does that mean? I don't know. But I gotta say, I really liked this comic as far as, like, being an artistic experience. I think this is a weird setup. I don't really know what's going on. And I will admit that I don't like that your promo ends right when we meet the thief character. So if that's meant to be your lead character and I'm supposed to sympathize with him, I have no idea who this person is, or what they want, or why they're stealing, or what they're trying to accomplish. All I know is I spent most of the issue with the professor, and then the professor kicks off some kind of rebellion thing, and then he disappears. I do not know. Yeah, here we go. How do cameras work? The gods are returned. Kill all gods. That's pretty cool. Can't argue with that. That's pretty dope looking. So this book was done by Ram V, Evan Cagle, Anand R.K., Aditya Bidikar, and Tom Muller. The only name I'm familiar with out of those is Ram V. I've read a handful of comics by them that I generally don't have a lot of love for, so this is one I would be skeptical of getting more of. That's not to say I wouldn't do it. I might try that out in actual comic book form, depending on my finances, because that was pretty cool. I had a pretty good time with that. Next up, we had Conan, Tides of the Tyrant King. I'm not a big Conan guy. I never have been. I've never read the original books. I collected some of the Conan comics when Marvel did them, specifically the Jason Aaron run, because I really like Jason Aaron's writing for the most part. But I keep trying to test out other Conan comics to see if there's anything that grabs my attention. And for the most part, they don't work. And this really had my attention because for whatever reason, the Tides of the Tyrant King makes me think this is either like a pirate story or like a water god or like a sea serpent or sea monster kind of thing. And I was like, ooh, yeah, I like the sound of that. That sounds pretty cool. And then within the comic itself, what happens here? The inside of the comic is a dual-part narrative where you've got Conan in the Hyborian Age doing Conan things, and then his story is met up with a American soldier in World War I. And the whole idea of the story is that there's something that happened in the Hyborian Age that presents a threat that is also going to be happening during the post-World War I era while this guy's trying to figure out what his life is like. We are told... Yeah, here we go. We are told in a bit of writing by Jeffrey Shanks in the back of the book how original author Robert E. Howard began to build all of his concepts and have like a shared continuity for all of them, and how you would see a character or a concept move from story to story to story, from like Conan to Solomon Kane to I don't remember the next one. And they really wanted to riff on that idea of a threat, like the idea that evil is timeless and must always be stood up to, by having a story in the ancient past and then a story in the recent past. Which is an idea I really like. We don't get a shape of what that threat is in it. We meet our two lead characters. Conan is a badass warrior who kicks ass and takes names, but then also chooses not to rape women, which is a plus. And then you've got the American soldier who was wounded in his first battle and then got to sit out the rest of the war while he was in recovery, but now feels bad that he never really got to help with the war effort. And so he's ashamed of himself and wandering Europe trying to figure out what it is he's missing. And then he's going to encounter that threat. From an artistic perspective, this was great. Where's the creative team on this one? Do we have one? Do you tell me? On the Road of Kings. I believe it was written by Jim Zub, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Written by Jim Zub, art by Jesus Marino, coloring by Howell Canolo, lettering by Richard Starkins and Comicraft's Tyler Smith, editor Chris Butera. This is a pretty book. Like, in terms of being a good-looking Conan comic, I think they nail it. I think that Marino's artwork is appropriately, like, chunky and dirty and gritty and realistic. Here's one of the war scenes, so y'all can kind of get an idea. He does a great job. Like, I can't argue with that. But I do think for a book that's really trying to sell you on the idea of a threat across generations, we don't see that threat or a setup for that threat or like the menace of that threat in this book at all. It's really a character introduction, so that's not bad. And if you like Conan, I think this does a good job for it. It just does not have a particular hook for me that's really going to get me going. Where am I at? Where am I at? My stack of crap. Okay, those are two books I really want to talk about. Let's get this one done. We then have Street Fighter Forever, Issue 0. I think this is a lead-in for an upcoming ongoing Udon is going to be doing called Street Fighter Forever. I think I could be wrong, because there's not a lot in this that is a setup for future stuff. This issue is pretty much a recap of Ryu's origin, his modern day, and then where his future could lie. I think that the recap, as far as his origin goes, works really well. It flashes back to the famous Ken and Ryu training scene that you see in Street Fighter, the animated movie 2, I think it is. Basically, the book opens with modern-day Ryu, like, meditating, trying to go inward, and when he does, his mind travels through the past. And he encounters Ken, he meets his master Goken, he witnesses his master being killed by Akuma, and then battles Akuma, and then his attention shifts into the future, where he encounters, I don't remember the dude's name, Sean and Sakura. I know that Sakura, for the most part, has been Ryu's student. I'm assuming that Sean is Ken's student, based on the dialogue that we see here. But then they basically fight him in what really looks like a trading room, not a trading room, the danger room, showing off their future techniques. So, like, Sakura can use her chi to animate puppets that can then fight with her or to see through their eyes on the battlefield, while Sean uses it looked to me like it was supposed to be a basketball, but it was colored like a volleyball, maybe a soccer ball. It definitely does not have the patterns of a soccer ball. In combat as effectively a third fist. And he's just like, oh man, if this is where the future's going, the future's in good hands. And then there's a backup story where Judy and Viper bust up a mob meeting, and then it turns out they've both been hired by the other party to betray the other party. And then there's another twist where it turns out they actually agreed to screw them both over, and they stole all their money. And now they're just rich and living it up. Story by David Lubson, pencils by Mike Bowden, colors by Espen Grundjorn, lettering by Marshall Dillon, bonus story art by Tovio Rogers. This was fun. Like I said, if it is setting up the next Street Fighter ongoing, which I think it is, I have not looked too closely into that, then I don't think it does a good job. But as a recap of who Ryu is and where he's been and where the Street Fighter story could move into the future, I think it's interesting. I've never seen Street Fighter I've never seen the Street Fighter comics, specifically Udon's, do that kind of thing before. They're always very we're going to adapt the current story of the next video game, and then we're going to maybe tell some origin stuff. And I mean, to be fair, this is basically an origin recap, but still, it's a pretty good origin recap. Art by Mike Bowden. I won't lie, I am a fan of Mike Bowden stuff. I actually already followed him on Instagram. He's a really good, his work reminds me of Joe Mad, and I think that is super true here. This Ken face feels like a very Joe Mad Ken face. He's got a lot of those, the big, blocky, chunky lines, the big, bulky characters. And like I said, it really does remind me of Joe Mad, especially modern Joe Mad, where his work's a little bit chunkier than it used to be. But I'm also a lot more used to the fan images that Bowden posts on his Instagram that are a little bit more refined, a little bit heavier on the inks. And so this looks lighter to me. It looks not necessarily like a rush job, and he does do a good job with all of the drawing, but it does look like it just doesn't have as much work behind it. And I know drawing a comic book in a month is not easy. I've done it before myself. But But like I said, I don't think it's as refined as the stuff that you normally see online for him to do. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Overall, everything works. The characters look like themselves. The drawings look good. And yeah, I thought this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm hoping that there's a new Street Fighter thing coming soon in the future. There's advertisements in the back. The next two Street Fighter Masters one-shots are Ken and Juri, coming later this year. Yeah, looking forward to more. Next up for Comics Giveaway Day, we're going into the Marvel stuff. You know what? Let me start with this one. We've got their entry for Amazing Spider-Man, which also features set up for the Queen in Black event that's going to kick off soon, and the Infernal Hulk. This one has a whole bunch of different people working out. The Spider-Man story was written by Joe Kelly, art by John Romita Jr., art by Scott Hanna and Marcio Menez. Queen in Black was written by Al Ewing, who's writing the ongoing Venom series right now, Iban Coelho, Guru EFX, and then the Infernal Hulk is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, who's been writing the Hulk series for the last 3 years. Art by Nick Klein and Matthew Wilson. Overall, this isn't a bad comic. I have read 2 of Joe Kelly's Spider-Man story arcs. I've read the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man and the more recent Death Spiral that I'm considering doing a light breakdown episode on. Because the thing is, I don't really like them. I think they're both too long. I think they both belabor the point. I think both of them could be really cut down into a nice contained 6-issue story arc. And so I actually think that reading this issue, the Amazing Spider-Man portion of this comic, is really good. It's a one-shot. It's Amazing Spider-Man is swinging around New York City when he encounters a police standoff with one of his old villains called The Answer. The Answer's whole thing is that he comes up with solutions to problems, including superpowers. So, like, let's say Spider-Man's whipping him with webbing. He'll come up with a way to either escape the webbing or dissolve the webbing or become intangible so the webbing can't touch him at all. Well, with the rise in AI and misinformation and people agreeing to go along with these ideas, The Answer no longer believes in an objective reality. And if you don't think that things are real, how can you react to them appropriately? And so his power levels are just going off the charts as he's literally just ranting like, I don't know what's real. Answer me. Answer me. And so Spider-Man ends up defeating him by tackling him in a hug and being like, hey, man, I get it. There's a lot of crap out there these days. And so the thing that I do is I focus on something that I know unequivocally to be true. Like how much I love my aunt. Do you have somebody like that? And he ends up not really defeating, but winding down The Answer by just treating him like a human being and having a discussion with him. The Answer does escape in full view of the police. And so that is one of those things where I was like, oh, well, I don't think the cops are necessarily going to like that Spider-Man let The Answer get away, not that he could stop him. But I thought it was actually a really cute, really touching story that's grounded in modern-day concerns, and it worked really well for me. I would argue it's the single best Joe Kelly Spider-Man thing I feel like I've read out of the almost 20 issues of Spider-Man that I've bought with his name attached to it. The Queen in Black stuff is definitely more of a setup kind of thing. I don't believe Al Ewing has been doing much of the setup for Queen in Black in the actual Venom comic. I know that there's a Null miniseries going on right now, and I think much of the setup's being done over there in that. But the basic idea of Queen in Black is that Hela, the mistress of Norse hell, has gotten control of a symbiote. She has become the Queen in Black to Null's King in Black, after Eddie Brock gave the title up at the end of last year. God, was it last year? 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago, at the end of the Venom War. So now, she's in charge of all the symbiotes, and we're... Oh, thank you for my credit cards. And my wallet. Good job. You're welcome. So where Null was like, hey, I believe in the pure, beautiful nothingness that existed before the light existed, Hela's like, I just want everyone dead. And so she has been using the symbiotes to take over a variety of aliens, and then she uses them to invade New York City, which will then become the actual Queen in Black miniseries that will be tying into Venom and probably Amazing Spider-Man and that kind of stuff. The issue is kind of basically just a rundown of the various aliens that are under her command, which I actually think is really interesting and really cool and a little bit fun. Al Ewing does pick up the character Tyr from his run over on the Immortal Thor. She's basically acting as like he is basically acting as the god of war for Hela, directing her attack on Earth. So we see the Rigelian symbiotes landing in Egypt for terraforming and technology. We see the Skrulls landing in Italy for infiltration and espionage. Like, it's a really clever way of doing an alien invasion that actually feels like a planned military invasion. It makes me wish that Al Ewing had never left Guardians of the Galaxy, or that the Guardians of the Galaxy had never stopped being published. Depends on your perspective there. But yeah, the issue ends with all of our heroes jumping into the fray. Spider-Man, Venom, Agent Anti-Venom, Black Cat, and then I don't know who those two characters are supposed to be. They kind of look vaguely like the Tarantula and a Green Goblin-esque character. Part of me wants to say it might be She-Hulk, but I'm pretty confident last I knew She-Hulk is off in space, so I don't know who that character is supposed to be. And then we do end with a promo for the upcoming Hulk War story, which sees the Hulk, who has been possessed by the villain of Philip Kennedy Johnson's run, Mother, the Queen of All Monsters, has taken over the Hulk's body. And this is kind of a promo of where things are going to get, where Captain America's dead, he's impaled, and zombies are carrying him through a city, and a whole bunch of monsters are just being evil people. I actually really think that Infernal War looks cool. I'm a little frustrated that I had to stop buying the Incredible Hulk. I do feel like towards the end of the Incredible Hulk part, where the book ended and then it got turned into the now ongoing Infernal Hulk, I do feel like the stories had gotten weaker towards the end of the book's life, but I really want to see that story to its conclusion. Infernal War looks really cool, and I love the idea of either having the other Marvel heroes turn into monsters or having monster versions of them get created and then they gotta fight. Like, that's just such a comic book idea. How can I be upset at that? So yeah, overall, this was way better than I was expecting it to be. I don't think it's very special. I don't think if you don't get to read this comic, I don't think it's going to affect any of these three stories at all. It very much is a promo comic. But for me, this is kind of how one of the big companies does a promo comic. We've then got Avengers Armageddon, which is vaguely a promo for the upcoming Armageddon event that's kind of already going on in Captain America and Wolverine Road to Armageddon. I bought it mainly because I'm an X-Men guy, and this contains a little bit of a preview for Jed MacKay's X-Men series, upcoming crossover, DNX. Yeah, DNX. So the Avengers portion of the story deals with the fact that after the fall of Doom at the end of World Under Doom, the Red Hulk has taken possession of the nation of Latveria against pretty much everybody's wishes, and he is going to use the technology that he has found there in order to bring democracy to the entire world. As we read in this particular series, though, his version of democracy is he will let everyone decide for themselves what they want to do, even if what they want to do is blow themselves up and live in the Stone Age, or have no resources, or have no medication, or food, or military. If that's what you want, that's what you want. I'll let you do that, regardless of how many people die as an end result. But to get to that point, of course, the Red Hulk is going to have to stop everybody who wants to stop him, which includes the various heroes of the Marvel Universe. Throughout the comic, we see Red Hulk in encounters with superheroes. At first it's the Avengers, and then it's the Fantastic Four, and between these scenes there's a panel that says Reset. And I believe Red Hulk is looking at one of Dr. Doom's devices that will allow him to peer through time, and so he is seeing potential alternate futures that he can then plan for and either choose to make that future happen or choose to prune that future, so to speak. The whole issue does end with the Red Hulk in a very, like, Maestro-like form, gloating over an imprisoned Steve Rogers, being like, man, I brought democracy to the world, I'm the good guy. And Steve's like, that's not the point, that's not the idea. And Red Hulk is just like, nah, you're an idiot. I won't lie, I do not have an interest in Avengers Armageddon. Chip Zdarsky as a writer is the kind of writer where you need to read like his whole run to really get what he's doing. And on the one hand, I like that style of comic book storytelling. If you're going to tell a story, you might as well make me buy all of it. But on the flip side, I don't have a lot of money. I can't buy every comic book. And so when Marvel announced Zdarsky was going to be doing Captain America, I stayed away. And then they announced Zdarsky was going to be using Captain America to set up the Avengers Armageddon event. And I went, well, I'm going to stay even further away. And then Marvel went, we're going to use Armageddon to launch the next Avengers ongoing series. And I went, man, you can't give me more of a reason to stay away from this whole thing. And then they announced the Wolverine Road to Armageddon series. So yeah, I'm not in on this one. I do think that it's a nice promo. I don't know if I think the threat is particularly interesting myself. It feels a little Civil War-y to me. But I mean, it's a good setup. I like the way that it sets some stakes. I'm annoyed that we're already using Doctor Doom time technology crap. I hated that. I've really considered doing a series on the One World Under Doom miniseries because I did not enjoy that event almost at all. And I kind of want to talk about it. I'll be right back. Bless you. The X-Men side of things, I actually found to be a little less impressive. Who did this one? I know it's written by Jed MacKay. We do not have a credited team there at the beginning. DNX. Yeah, do we have no credits whatsoever? Wow, that's surprising. Other than the cover. Okay. Well, the X-Men part of the issue is written by Jed MacKay with art by Vincentini. Carrie, please. Thank you. I believe the story basically acts as a bridge between the current X-Men story arc, the Danger Room, and the upcoming story arc, DNC. The X-Men attack a Hydra base that is being mentally manipulated by their enemies 3K, run by some of the X-Men's worst modern-day enemies, who are looking for a way to mass-produce a virus that will give everybody on Earth a mutant ability. They are looking to turn the entire world into a mutant world. Ugh. But as we saw during the recent X-Men crossover Age of Revelation, that is not necessarily a good thing. And so it is very important that the X-Men stop this from happening. The issue is pretty much just kind of a showcase of who the X-Men are and what they currently do. There has been no shakeup within the team in its current ongoing form anyways. The book's 25 issues along now, so it's been running for 2 years. I like Jed MacKay's X-Men book. I think it and Uncanny X-Men are the best X-books Marvel's currently putting out of the things they're putting out. I don't know how I feel about DNX as an event, because I don't think the idea of, like, we're going to turn everybody into mutants is that interesting of an idea. I mean, you know, the first Fox X-Men movie did it, and it wasn't very interesting. So I don't know. This isn't really doing a lot for me. I do think it's a good little snippet of X-Men comic, as far as that's concerned. Yeah. But I don't, again, it's one of those things where if you don't get to read this issue as part of your X-Men collection, you're going to get along just fine. If you do get to read it, hey, it's a nice little scene of the X-Men kicking butt. And if you like that kind of thing, and why wouldn't you, then it's a good thing. So yeah, I actually think the Amazing Spider-Man issue is probably better than the Avengers Armageddon one overall, but I do think they're both pretty good. You will notice on this list that I didn't get any DC promos at all, because I believe the only book that they're doing was a Next Level promo book where they have their next 3 ongoing series, Batwoman, Lobo, and Deathstroke, being promoted. One of which is Batwoman, which I'm already buying, and the other 2 I don't care about at all, so I skipped getting that one. My next comics giveaway day issue is Minotaur by Simon Spurrier, art by Mike Dowling. Once again, from Ignition Press. Is that Ignition, right? Key? Yeah, Ignition Press down in the corner. Once again, thank you for the nice little summary on the back of the comic. I love that. I wish all comic books would do that. That would be so much nicer than an interior page. That is so great. And then a nice, it's not quite a cardstock cover, but it is thicker than normal. Good quality, good quality. Anyways, the whole idea of Minotaur is that in a government facility basement in Cincinnati, the singularity happened, where AI reached a point where it could outthink humanity for, I think in the story they say it's 5 minutes, and then somebody pulled the plug. Because the government's not going to risk letting a post-human, post-capitalist entity gain unlimited power and reshape reality as they know it. Not gonna happen. So they killed it. But that was still 5 minutes of a thing thinking beyond the depth that humanity can think, and they believe that something leaked. For the majority of the issue, this is generally demonstrated by this idea here on the cover. There's this creepy hand-looking spider thing that dies, and then these wasp insects keep crawling out of it. It's really creepy and really gross, but the idea is that these AI have done something that affects the world. Within the comic, we meet, let's see if we can get the woman's name. If you couldn't tell, I didn't take any notes on this comic. We meet a journalist named Monday, who is being hired by a masked man who doesn't want his identity revealed to investigate strange,
no swearing,
happening in the world that he believes was caused by this AI singularity. There was an event where something attacked Wall Street. We get to see an image of it within the comic. It's a weird ethereal-esque energy being. The major news companies say that it was a hoax, that it was all a prank, or it was AI, or, it was faked based. It's all fake news, essentially. But she knows that is not true, because when this happened, the thing reached out and it touched, her stomach area, and it basically appears to have gotten her pregnant. And so she now has a sense for what weird things are tied to the singularity, and she is being hired by this person to go and investigate the weird stuff and see if this thing is as dangerous as everybody thinks it is. I like that setup. It's a little bit X-Files, a little bit, modern day Fears. I love Simon Spurrier's writing, generally speaking. I did think that this was a little... Everything else that I've read by Simon Spurrier has a good twinge of darkness to it that makes it feel realistic enough, but also an underlying sense of hope of, we can solve this problem. This doesn't really feel like there's a lot of hope. Yes, it's very sad. I don't know why you think that's funny, my cutie. There is a lot of cynicism in this comic book, but I mean, I like the pitch for it. I like the general artwork. I've never seen... Was it Ryan Dowling? Mike Dowling. I've never seen Mike Dowling's artwork before, but it's very realistic. It's very grounded. It makes the unnatural elements seem that much more creepy. And overall, it really worked for me. Spurrier is launching 2 new ongoings this year, Minotaur and A Mischief of Magpies. I'm looking forward to buying both of them. I will find the money, because I'm like I said, I'm kind of a Spurrier fan for life, I think, at this point, or until he does wrong. Okay, my last free comic that I got, I have one actual comic I want to talk about a little bit. My last free comic was the Energon Universe 2026 special, which is basically a promo issue for their upcoming Mask comic book. The 4th title as part of the Energon universe. The issue basically sees the bad guy of that particular series, General Miles Mayhem, continue to recruit 2 more psychopaths for his team of evil people. If you've been reading the other Energon universe titles, you'll know that characters like Miles Mayhem and Matt Tracker, who are Mask characters, have been getting set up as part of the Energon universe for a while now. And on the one hand, I think that part of the storytelling is great, and I'm glad to see those characters continue to be used as the setup for the main comic itself. However, the story keeps being like, we've got these masks, and I'm like, great, what do they do? What's the point of them? Especially in a comic book universe that has recently realized Transformers, and then the Energon being used as a resource for technology over in Transformers and G.I. Joe. Are these masks powered by Energon? Are they tied into those things? Because the book really kind of goes out of its way to show that, like, Matt Tracker designed the mask technology, and then the government said we don't want to use it, and then General Mayhem said, I want to use it, I'm stealing it for my own. And Mayhem plans to protect Earth from these dang aliens that are on it, but he's going to do so in a way that is, unhinged and dangerous for the rest of us. And then I guess Matt Tracker's going to stand against him, it seems to be the idea. I've talked a little bit about the Energon universe on the podcast. I like Void Rivals. I've really liked Transformers. I've really fallen in love with G.I. Joe. I didn't think I would. I didn't think they were going to win me over. God, they have. I love the G.I. Joe comic. It's such a, it's so what I want out of a comic book. Mask is the thing I'm now most skeptical on, and the lead up to Mask has not made me any less skeptical. I still don't know what the masks are. I still don't know what their powers are. I still don't know how they interact with the people. I don't know what the point of the comic moving forward is, other than stop General Miles. Or General Mayhem, I suppose I should call him. And I'm like, well, okay. What's he, is he going to do anything? What's his stated goals to defend Earth from aliens? That doesn't seem like that bad a thing. And you go, well, he's a criminal. And I go, well, yeah, but, Duke was a criminal for his miniseries as well. It's the morality is so shifting, and I don't feel like I've seen anything that General Mayhem has done that makes me go, oh, he is blatantly a bad guy. I've just gone, oh, he's killed a lot of bad people. And don't get me wrong, I don't approve of him killing people, but in the Energon universe, that doesn't seem like that bad of a thing. So yeah, I don't know. This one I remain a little bit skeptical on. I'm hoping they're going to prove me wrong. Like I said, every time I've doubted them, they have proven me wrong. So I'm hoping that the trend continues. Let me flip through my stack real quick. Yep, that was all the stuff that I got for free that I wanted to talk about. The last comic I want to talk about as part of my free comic book day issues, which is not a free comic at all. I paid full price for it. I'm glad to pay full price for it. Was Lorenzo De Felici's Red Roots. I think it was back in 2023, I did my favorite comics of the year list, and I'm sorry I do not have your name written down, but someone suggested to me the comic book Chroma, Kroma. I will set you down if you're going to play with my equipment. I will ban you from my area if you're going to play with my equipment, okay? I need you to be cool. Yeah? My big girl, you going to be cool? They suggested Chroma. When I started looking into Chroma, I saw that it was done by the same guy who was then drawing Void Rivals for the Energon universe, and I went, hey, I like that. Chroma was only 4 issues. I went, hey, I like that. And then I found, I think, just the first issue at a $1 sale. Got it for $1. And then I went, yeah, I could find the other 3 issues, no problem. Bought Chroma. Love Chroma. 10 out of 10. No complaints. I want to talk about it on the show someday just so that I can sing its praises. And I know, and so after Chroma, De Felici did Void Rivals with Robert Kirkman, and then left Void Rivals, and then we haven't heard from him since. That's because he was working on Red Roots. This is a oof. I'm pretty sure this is double size, still only $5, which, for a comic book these days is not a bad price. The story seems to follow 2 different characters. We've got Special Agent Sand, and then this woman, whose name that I have forgotten off the top of my head. I do not know what her name is. Special Agent Sand spends the issue infiltrating and murdering his way through a highly defended building until he gets to a rich
No swearing.
asshole at the end of it, and he goes, hey, you killed this person, Agent Hourglass, and the rich
No swearing.
asshole's like, oh, well, I didn't kill her. That's hilarious that you killed all these people, and now I have to kill you. But I didn't kill her. She took the money and ran. And Agent Sand is like, that is not true. And he's like, no, it is true, and now we're going to have to kill you. And so Agent Sand murders the rich guy, but then he is shot up by his bodyguards. But then, as he's lying in a pool of his own blood, these red extensions, these red roots, seem to rise up from the blood and engulf him. And then he sinks into the blood, and at the end of the comic, instead of getting a nice description of the comic at the back of it, we get this final scene of Agent Sand being spat out on the sand. His roots appear to have saved him. Whether at least they removed him from danger. I don't know what's going on there. And then the other character, the woman, let's see if I can get you a name real quick. Sorry. Drama, Are we told a name, actually? We gotta be, right? She calls the cops and she doesn't even say her name. Okay, without rereading the comic real quick, I don't know the woman's name. We're shown that she's a teacher at school. She lives by herself. We know that her mom has some kind of issue going on with her that she refuses to talk about. And then one night when she gets home from work, she looks in her closet, and there is a severed head sitting there. So she freaks out. She calls the cops. The cops investigate. They go, yep, that's a severed head. We found no fingerprints, no sign of break-in. We don't know what's going on there, but stay safe. And then she goes home, and she keeps seeing severed heads all throughout her apartment. And then they start talking to her. And we know that her mother has something going on. So is this inside her head? Is this a real thing? She calls her mom to be like, Mom, I get it. I'm sorry. And then there is a loud banging at her door. And something breaks through that I would describe as a troll. And he goes, hey, you've got something that belongs to me. Which I'm assuming is the heads or a psychosis. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on in this book. It's obviously the first issue. Hell of a first issue. It looks good. It reads well. It's got two disparate characters where their narratives are going to be coming together to tell you one story. Yeah, you can have my keys. That's all right. But I really like this. I wish that this had been some kind of like free comic book day giveaway issue. I mean, it's such a good comic. Like to give this away as a free issue would be insane. But yeah, I really like this. I thought it was a super good setup. It's intriguing. It's mysterious. It looks like a little sci-fi. It looks like a little fantasy. De Felici specifically says in a little bit to the audience at the back of the book that the summary of the book is this idea of two. Quote, two characters, two ideas, two worlds colliding. Thank you very much. Two is such a powerful concept. It's one plus the other. It's the minimum requirement for a choice, fight, difference, hate, love. Poetic. It's poetic. It's beautiful. I love that De Felici thinks about the story that he wants to tell and what it's going to mean moving forward. But yeah, Red Roots. I liked it. Solid first issue. Looking forward to more. I hope y'all end up getting it. God, I want to talk about Chroma on the show. Don't hit it, please. And that brings to a wrap my free comic books day list. Out of everything, I do think that Marvel did pretty good this year. A lot of interesting independent comics this year. I did not get the Mega Man one-shot, and it didn't occur to me until after I had already done my free comic book day stuff that technically I need 4 copies of that Energon Universe special for Void Rivals, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and then 1 for Mask. I don't know if I'm going to actually get 4 copies at some point, because God, that feels frustrating. But yeah, I thought this was a really good comics giveaway day. A lot of good stuff. Like I said, Ephraim and I hit up a couple different stores. Every place was packed. Everybody was getting comics. People were buying stuff. Like, it wasn't just people showing up for the free stuff, which I really appreciate. I'm a big advocate of, like, if you're going to take part of Free Comic Day, go buy something. Stores do pay for these comic books. It still costs them money to get them. And so it doesn't make sense to me to just go and be like, hey, give me your free stuff and then get out. I had a really good time. Thankfully, my daughter does not like the car trips for Free Comic Book Day. But she did get to walk around and interact with a bunch of different people, and I think she had a good time. And then I actually, we went to a mall where they were doing like a kind of, not just comic giveaway day, but like kind of a just geek day. And so there's all these like individual vendors set up throughout the mall selling like artwork, books, comic books, crochet, posters, magnets, pins, just a whole bunch of stuff, and then a couple people selling a bunch of different comic books. And I stopped at one particular booth, and they had 50-cent comics and dollar comics. And I was like, well, for 50 cents, I'll root around. And I ended up finding two 50-cent issues and $4 issues. And I went to pay, and the person was like, I only take Venmo. And I go, I actually have Venmo. I just need to re-download it. So Ephraim's chatting with them. I've got Carrie in one arm. I'm getting Venmo re-downloaded. I'm trying to put money in, and it's just not going. And the whole time I'm doing this, as I'm holding Carrie, she's taking my wallet apart. So, like, I have to vaguely pay attention because she's going to have, like, my ID and my credit cards and stuff. And I think I get everything set up. And then Venmo is like, there was an error. We can't proceed. And it kicks me back out. And I just look at the guy. I'm like, man, I'm sorry. I'm going to put these back. I'm sorry for wasting your time. I don't know what's going on with this, and I just don't have the ability to figure it out right now. And he looks at the comics, and he looks at me, and he looks at Karen, and he's like, you know what? It's free comic book day. Just take them. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. I really appreciate that, but you don't have to do that. And he's like, no, it's fine. Like, it's free comic book day. You went through so much effort to try and like get the comics paid for, and it's $5. I'm not worried about it. And I was just like, Again, I really appreciate that, but you do not have to do that. I'll take it, but you don't. So he was very nice. And like I said, I basically got 6 additional comic books for free that I wasn't expecting. I will never forget that. Every time I look at those comics, it was specifically I've been vaguely poking around Grant Morrison's 7 Soldiers set of miniseries from the early 2000s, and he gave me the Mr. Miracle 4. Which is great. Those are one of the more expensive ones in the set. And then I got 2 issues of the new 52 Batwoman run, which I've been putting together. And yeah, I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, is there like a website or something? And then I can, I do not mind sending you $5 when I get this figured out. And he goes, no, I'm just looking to clear out my personal collection. And then I went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm sorry to hear you have to sell your comic books, but then I appreciate them even more that this isn't just a dude selling comic books. Yeah, this was a dude selling his collection, like clearing things out. So I'm honored that they're now a part of my collection. I love comic books, and I consider the stewardship of my collection to be one of the most important things that I do with these things. Yeah, I know it's laughable. But we all have a purpose, and I want this to be mine. Whether you have an interest in comic books or not, we'll see. But Daddy does. So yeah, it was a nice day out with one of my friends. I got a handful of comic books, which was, of course, always great. I do think that the comic book giveaway day comics this year were really strong. And then I'm vaguely experimenting with getting into the Gundam TCG. And I picked up 2 card packs at one of the comic book stores, and I ended up getting a legendary art card out of all of it. It was a $40 pull for having spent, I think, like $10. And I was just like, oh, that's really neat. Okay, cool. I don't know if I'm going to get into Gundam or not. I really don't need to, because that's another source of money going away I don't need. But like I said, yeah, I don't, because you're a little expensive. But that's okay, because I love you. Yeah. Thank you for the smile. Yeah. But, thank you for the giggle, too. Oh, you're great. You're great, kid. So Free Comic Book Day was a big success for me. And, as you can see, as I said at the start of this, I'm getting over a chest cold, so my voice is a little wonky. I'm trying to get back to writing some more episodes. I have a Batwoman episode written. I just need to record it. I've got some Mega Man episodes written and recorded. I just need to get the artwork for. And then I have a little interview that I want to do as part of that. I may have an opportunity to interview somebody else, which I wasn't expecting. I need to do some research to follow up on it. And then I just hit on an idea for another episode earlier for idea I want to explore for a set of comics I recently finished reading. So, the gears are turning. The wheels are moving up there. Yeah, she can play with that. Thank you all for listening. What did you guys get for Free Comic Book Day this year? Was any of it good? Did you have a good time? Hopefully you enjoyed the process. And we'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode of Breakdown, please make sure to hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed to the show, then click on that as well.
I love getting feedback, and I would really appreciate it if you did so. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like to suggest a comic or a series to me, Breakdown can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and on a variety of podcast platforms, with links in the description for this episode below, as well as the email cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and attention.